It is now night and all nearly silent. I am here alone, and in silence all my past friends, with all my relations, fall heavy on my mind. They all are gone, and I too must soon follow. To be laid in the dust in the silent grave, and there to be forever forgotten, makes the cold chills run over my whole body. I have a hope beyond the grave. That hope is that when I am consigned to my grave, that someone on the earth might remember me.
Welcome to Ancestors. I'm your host, Scott Wilkinson. The lives of our ancestors have been reduced to a few flickering photographs, a few scraps of paper. But those fading images are a link, a connection to ourselves and our past. And making that connection is what genealogy is all about.
There's a day when you suddenly realize, who are my ancestors? Who were the people beyond my grandparents? What did my great-grandparents look like? And family stories begin to flow from those as you begin to talk to your parents and other relatives. And suddenly you develop what I think is an insatiable thirst for this information, and suddenly you can't get enough or can't learn enough about your family.
As far as explaining the phenomenon totally, I don't know that anybody can. Alex Haley probably came the closest when he said we all have a hunger to know our roots. I think that's a basic truth that perhaps some people are still denying, and they'll get over it. They'll get to the stage where one day somebody will tweak something in them and they'll start to wonder about their heritage.
I think it also helps to put life into perspective. It's like if you don't know about the past, you live for today, and you think that everything has to do with today, you can get very frustrated with a lot of the problems that exist for today, and particularly when it comes to solving particular problems. But if you know that some things have been around for generations and generations, well, it takes some of the edge off, some of the frustration off, and you can put things in better perspective.
You get up in the morning, you get dressed, you go to work, you come home, you go to bed. Oh, there's got to be more to life than that. And there is. You have bled. You have wept. You have rejoiced. You've loved. You've hated. You've been happy. You've been angry. So are your ancestors. Let's record this and let your children know they're normal. And they're no better and no worse than anybody else.
I do genealogy because I find out more about myself than I do anything else, and I just feel connected to something now. I started doing it for medical reasons, trying to find a medical background, and learned some things about my great-grandparents that once I learned them, I just couldn't stop.
How do we know our ancestors existed? Well, certainly word of mouth. Your parents can tell you their memories of grandparents and so on. But it's the documentation, the papers they left behind, whether it's a diary, oh, don't you wish they kept a diary, or a journal, oh, heavenly days. But generally it's a birth certificate or a marriage certificate, or you start with a death certificate. Or maybe they own some property and you've got a land record or a will, or maybe little scraps of paper. But it's the papers, the documents, the stuff they wrote on, the things that were written about them or were created because of their existence. These prove their existence. It's not just a piece of paper with some writing on. It represents a life.
When I first started learning about genealogy and all the different records that were available and all these things, at first it was kind of like probate and census, and it just seemed so boring to me. But all that changed when I realized that, hey, these are my ancestors, that are in these records. This is my great-great-grandfather's probate packet. This is the will that he left to my great-grandfather. And, the first time I found my great-grandfather in the census, all of a sudden this was no longer, some kind of boring record. These were my people in there, and that made all the difference.
As we look at the records from our ancestors' lives, it's like opening a time capsule into the past, a window on the way things were. But as time moves forward, those fragile windows can shatter, and the information can be lost.
Every day records are destroyed, either by time or by a specific event. A fire, a flood, these happen continuously. Earthquakes, any number of things take out genealogical records.
I have seen parish registers where there are little teeth marks and little scratches and nibbles from rats. And we can say other vermin. I hate to think what, but rats are bad enough. And then every now and then you will get a minister who will write and say, we had a terrific storm and the water was 30 feet high on the church wall. My gosh, what happened to the parish chest? Oh, here, you see, mould, water, the ink ran, things were destroyed. All of that destroys these records. And once they're destroyed, the record of the people on them is gone.
There was a dam in southeastern Idaho, the Teton Dam, that broke in 1976. The community I grew up in was right at the mouth of the canyon, and when the water came out of the canyon, that was about a 20-foot wall of water gushing out, and most people's homes were totally destroyed. In a lot of cases, they just disappeared. There was no trace left, and so they lost all of their records, all of their family heirlooms, photos. There's just nothing. Right after it happened, we spent, it seemed like a week or more, walking around through the fields trying to see if we could find anything that looked like it belonged to us, whether it was a picture or a dish or a coat, anything that might have been ours. And a lot of people just never found anything.
Unfortunately, we've had some serious fires. St. Louis in 1973, which destroyed 80% of the military records. The fire in Washington, which destroyed 99% of the 1890 census records. Those things immediately come to mind for genealogists. Things that are not so evident are things of our own destruction.
It's not just fires and floods that are destroying our records. We're doing it on our own as well. Through carelessness, ignorance, and deliberate destruction, we destroy more records than all the forces of nature combined.
I've heard of stories where when Great-Aunt Matilda died, and she'd been researching for 40 years and accumulated all this paper stuff, the family came and looked at it and thought, oh my word, they weren't at all interested in it, and they got a barrel in the backyard, piled it all in and burnt the lot of it. All of her genealogy was gone, all the photographs were gone, all the documents that she had so carefully collected, 40 years worth, all gone.
The worst scenario is one of your grandkids or one of your siblings or one of your children or a disinterested executor is saying, okay, we can sell this piece of furniture for $500. This is a box of junk because it's papers and photographs and we don't care about that stuff. It has no value financially. This is a photo album. Is there anyone in the family who wants it? No, no one wants it. Okay, we can toss that too.
You can go into thrift shops, you can go into antique shops, and you'll find photo albums, and nobody knows who the people are. You can find documents. You can find beautiful things that people have thoughtlessly gotten rid of when a relative died.
Well, we'll get a phone call from someone, and maybe their Aunt Minnie has died, and they need to get rid of all of her things. They've got to clear the house out. They have 1 week to do it. So we go over, we go room by room. We find everything that we want to take in the house. We make piles. We go through, we find photographs. We find old letters. We find sometimes even old home movies. And the people are truly interested in selling them. It's kind of sad because the younger generations aren't as interested.
I know of parish registers where the minister's wife has cut up the parchment, which is skin, and used it as stuffing for a pot holder. Oh, great. I hope it was her ancestor on the parchment, not mine.
When I first started doing research, one of the first thoughts was, is there a family Bible? And so we got on the telephone and wrote letters to the cousins, all of my father's cousins, and tracked down that there was a family Bible, and then we found out that a cousin had burned it. His mother died. He thought, nobody's ever going to want this old stuff, and it was destroyed, and we were just heartsick.
In many communities, you find horror story after horror story where they find church ledgers, where they find vital record ledgers that some concerned citizen has pulled out of a dumpster. What happened on the days that the concerned citizen didn't drive by? The dumpster still got filled, and the records still went to the landfill.
When you're talking about a nation's wealth of old records, and they are a wealth, they are a part of their history, and that is wealth, then these things need to be taken care of.
While many records have been lost by carelessness and ignorance, many more have been destroyed on purpose in an effort to rewrite the history and wipe out the identity of entire nations. In 1917, Russia's Bolshevik Revolution gave rise to communism, which made remembering one's heritage dangerous and sometimes even fatal. Today in Russia, there are those who are working to restore what was destroyed. Igor Sakharov of St. Petersburg witnessed the destruction of his people's records. He is now one of a growing number of genealogists who are striving to piece back together his people's history.
In the 20s and 30s, genealogy was stopped, so to speak, or you can even say it was prohibited. Genealogists all suffered very much. They were either repressed or ran away across the border, or they were silent, so that nobody knew that they were genealogists. In the West, if you know the place you were born, you go to an archive, you find church books. They were available to everyone. They weren't burnt, they weren't destroyed or recycled. Everything was in its place. In our archives, church books sometimes were destroyed as unnecessary. There were campaigns when the country needed paper. Where to get the paper? Naturally, in our archives. Taking old paper in order to make new paper. There were campaigns when large masses of old documents were eliminated. And some people decided what to save and what to destroy. These people were incompetent. These people were ideologically narrow. They destroyed that which they thought was unnecessary.
The same kind of genealogical destruction that took place in Russia happened again in the 1960s when the Red Army swept through China, burning villages and destroying any records they could find.
And the specific goal was to find the written genealogies and destroy them. And here the Chinese have kept the genealogies for millennia, not just for a few years, but for millennia. And when you destroy these things, you are not just destroying a family's genealogy, you're destroying a nation's history. You're wiping out the record of an entire people. You destroy the records of a country, you have free rein then to go in and rewrite history.
Sadly, the destruction of records continues today. But the good news is there are many people around the world who have dedicated their lives to reconstructing and preserving personal and family records. One of the best examples of record preservation can be found here at the Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation in Los Angeles, California. Stored in a permanent archive are more than 50,000 visual histories of survivors of the Holocaust.
This all started after Steven Spielberg created Schindler's List, and what happened is the movie got such unbelievable reviews, but it also created a genuine outpouring of emotion, and people started calling him and writing and saying, that's a great story, but it's not the only story. I have a story, my mother has a story. And so what he decided to do, since you can't make a movie out of every single story, was to create a place where we could record all of the survivors' testimonies and then preserve them forever.
All the names of all the survivors, there will eventually be 50,000 testimonies rescued from the 300,000 survivors that still exist today. But in 10 years' time, there will not be that many survivors. So it's a race against time to get as many survivors to testify on videotape as possible. So with every name, you'll see a picture and a small little summary of who they are. So I can type in Henry Rossmarin.
People who would teach, with kids. When I was little, I was 19 and a half.
And what this essentially is Henry has just given 2 to 5 hours of testimony about what happened to him in the Holocaust. Before the Holocaust, what was his life like? What was the life like during it? Who did he lose? Who survived?
We had our original goal of 50,000 testimonies. And at the time that we set that goal, we just thought we'd never be able to make it. Steven Spielberg has said numerous times that he never thought that 50,000 people would want to tell him their stories. As it turns out, a lot more than 50,000 testimonies have been collected, and there are still people who want to give their testimony. An awful lot of people who are named in these testimonies who did not survive the war. And we are actually, to a certain extent, giving them their life back because we're bringing their names up, we're making them public. Because they're mentioned in a testimony, you're going to learn something about them. And that's sort of a way of recreating all of the people who aren't here to give their own testimony.
Another organization that's devoted to the preservation of records from all over the globe is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In fact, they've established one of the world's largest repositories, a gigantic granite vault located here in the mountains above Salt Lake City.
This location was decided upon when it was found that the internal environment within the granite rock itself, we were able to maintain temperature levels and humidity levels that ensured that we could preserve this collection for many generations to come. We're filming in over 47 countries today so that people from all countries and in future generations will have access to this part of the world's written heritage. With records at risk in the world today, where they are endangered by man-made calamities such as war or through natural calamities such as floods and other kinds of destruction, we find that the vault represents a secure place in which those records can be stored and can be preserved for this generation and for generations to come.
Many of the records being microfilmed are made available to the public through the massive collection at the Family History Library right here in downtown Salt Lake City.
For over 100 years, we have been gathering records and making those available to the public. Anyone who wants to access that collection can come in person to the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. They can visit us at one of the family history centers located throughout the world, or they can go to an online version which gives some of the automated records that we have available and give you a description of many of the records that we have in the collection.
I think we need to pay more attention to what happens to the genealogical data that we collect. Maybe as we begin to compile and amass records, we need to make sure that the people in our family know what we want to happen to those records. Maybe as we compile books, as we gather together manuscripts, we need to contact the Genealogical Society of Utah and engage them in their microfilming program. They microfilm lots of personal family records. Maybe we can interact with our local public library, our local genealogical society, our local historical society, and engage in any type of photocopying on preservation acid-free paper. Maybe we can engage in some type of record preservation projects just in our own community. Lots of options to explore.
With so many millions of records being preserved worldwide, it's no wonder that family history research is one of the most popular hobbies in the United States and is growing rapidly around the world. Maybe that's partly because understanding your past helps you know who you are.
When I was 3 or 4, my parents divorced, and for several years we lived in the same area. I saw my dad on weekends. We did things together. My mother remarried a few years later, and after that I began to see my father less and less. I would see him at Christmas time or in the summer, and I knew his parents, and I knew some of his brothers and sisters, but that was really all. I never got to know the extended family, all the cousins and the aunts and uncles and all that sort of thing. And when I was in my mid-20s, I got this book in the mail, One of my father's cousins had put it together. His mother had been from my father's family, and he decided to do a family history. It was full of pictures from Europe where the family had come from, and there were stories about the lives of these people from Eastern Europe. So I sat down on the couch and I read the whole book from beginning to end. It was amazing for me. I looked at the pictures, and I felt like the people in the book looked like me, or that I looked like them. I'd never had that feeling before. You know, I'd always felt very plain, very ordinary. Didn't feel like I really had any heritage or roots or anything like that. And for the first time, I felt like I came from somewhere. And, you know, it's one of those things that I didn't know that I needed. I didn't think I did until I found it. And then I realized I'd been missing it my whole life.
Here we have people in today's society who are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. We're moving from pillar to post. Our jobs make us a very transient society anymore. We can travel the world with our work. But we have to have an anchor, something to hold on to, something that we know we can touch and say, this is ours, this is us. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that we have to be on the same spot all the time, but that we at least have the knowledge in our minds and in our hearts that, yes, this is me.
One of the tasks of genealogists is to convince people that this is important, that it is necessary to preserve the memories of all people, even if your family is modest and did not do anything significant. Anyway, people lived on Earth. We would not exist if they had not been here. Like a distant great-great-grandmother, who is in no way known except for she was our great-great-grandmother. But she lived. Had she not been here, I would not be here. I do not have the right not to know that she existed.
In this 13-part series, we're going to explore the world of genealogical records. We'll start with family and compiled records, how to use a computer in genealogy, and vital and religious records. Then we'll move on to census, cemetery, and military records. And finally, we'll explore newspapers, probate records, and immigration. And in our last episode, we'll bring it all together, and you'll learn how to write and publish a family history and how to preserve your own records.
In each episode, you'll meet people who used the record we're exploring to make a connection to their ancestors.
The name of the declarant.
Or the ages, the birthplace.
Back to Adam and Eve. I figured it was worth a try.
You'll learn the skills necessary to have a successful search for your own roots.
Genealogical records are the life events of your ancestors. They're the evidence that your ancestors lived, that they had real lives with real challenges and real dreams. The records they left illuminate those lives. And that's what it's all about, discovering your family and connecting with your ancestors.
I think there's something innate, something deep within the human spirit that longs to be identified. And I think the way a lot of people can do that, and what seems to fill that need, is family history.
Next time on Ancestors, we'll explore family records, the letters, diaries, and documents right in your own home. And we'll meet Suzanne Ballard, whose research started with a few names and dates on a single scrap of paper, which in turn led to the incredible diaries of her ancestors in Ireland.
Every day, reading these things and crying and weeping with joy to be able to finally find out so much information about these ancestors who so desperately wanted to be